Alright guys, it's been a while. So today we're doing area of basic shapes. We're going to do squares, rectangles, parallelograms, triangles, trapezoids, and rhombus. So there'll be several different formulas, but luckily they're all on your formula chart. Alright, so starting off with the easiest, a square. So first of all, the definition of area is the amount of space inside a shape. And the the formula for the area of a square is area is side squared. So if this side is 4 and this side is also 4, notice there are 16 little squares because you've got 4 going this way and 4 going this way. So area would be side squared. If your side is 4 squared, so your area would be 16. And that's all you have to do on squares. So area would be side squared. Area would be 12 squared. 12 squared is 144. So your area is 144. Now what about this one? If this side is S, then this side is S. So your formula would be S squared. And that's how they come up with the formula. All right, next one. It is a rectangle. So the formula for a rectangle is area is length times width. So remember, length times width. Okay, so area is length times width. And in this case, our length is 9 times our width is 4. So area is 36. In this case, we have area is length times width. Our length is 12. Our width is x. So our area is simply 12x. So remember, when you multiply by a variable, it's pretty simple. Now, think about a parallelogram, okay? The area of a parallelogram is base times height, okay? So if you think about a parallelogram, it's leaning. So the height, if you remember, the height has to be perpendicular to your base. So if you cut it off right here, so you cut along the height, cut it off, flip it around, and attach it to the opposite side, what you wind up with is a rectangle, okay? So remember that your base and your height have to be perpendicular. So this piece right here, this is actually the width, and we don't use the width when we're doing parallelograms. So you have to use what's inside the parallelogram to get your height. So let's try some. It says, given a parallelogram with the following values. So if my formula is base times height, well, the base is 8 times the height is 3. So 8 times 3 is 24. So the area would be 24. Okay, in this one they didn't draw that, but it's still there. Even though it's not drawn for you, it's still there. So you could go over here and you draw a little height going. So if my base is 10 and my height is 4, then my area is base times height of 40. Okay. Sometimes they may ask you to find the height given the other information, like here. If you remember, your height has to be perpendicular to your base. So what it does is it makes this little right triangle right here. So I've got this right triangle right here. So I can do Pythagorean theorem. So I've got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Well, I know the slanted side, so that means I'm going to subtract. So my c is 5 squared, my a is 3 squared, my b is h squared. So I'm going to subtract the 3 squared from here. So I get 5 squared minus 3 squared, and then you take the square root, and you get 4. So I find out that the height is 4. Well, if I add these two numbers together, I get that my base is 12. So area is 12 base times height, 4. So the area is 48. And of course, don't forget those good old special right triangles. Your height has to be perpendicular. So if this is 45, then this angle up here is also 45. So that means this side is equivalent to this side. Well, if this is 5, well, then my height is 5. These two are my base together. They add up to 18. Area is base times height. 18 times 5 is 90. All right. Moving on pretty quickly. All right. And the next thing we're going to do is triangles. So the area of a triangle formula is base times height divided by 2. So the base of this one is 10. The height is 7. And again, your base and your height have to be perpendicular. So base times height divided by 2. 10 times 7 divided by 2 is 35. So my area is 35. In this one, in an obtuse triangle, your height is actually outside. So you go to that outside corner and you drop a dotted line straight down that's equal with the base. So here my base is 6, my height is 4. So the area is base times height divided by 2. So this would be 24 divided by 2. So my area is 12. In this one, if you'll remember that I've told you before, when you have a right triangle, okay, I'm going to tuck this in right here. When you have a right triangle, to find the area of a right triangle, and this is for every single right triangle from now until the end of your life. To find the area of a right triangle, comma, multiply the legs and divide, if I could spell, by 2. So that is all you have to do. So if you know your legs, then you just multiply the legs. All right, so what I need to do here is I know that this leg is 7. I know the hypotenuse is 25. So I'm going to do Pythagorean theorem. So since I know the slanted side, I know I've got to subtract. So 25 squared minus 7 squared. Take the square root, and I get 24. So I find out that this side is 24. So now I know both legs. So the area is 24 times 7 divided by 2. So 24 times 7 divided by 2 is 84. And that's all you have to do on right triangles. Super easy. All right, trapezoid. Area is, parentheses, base 1 plus base 2. So your two parallel sides, base 1 and base 2. And then you divide by 2. And that should look somewhat familiar, times the height. So the height is still perpendicular to your base. So this is your height. So if we look down here at our examples, okay, we've got, let's extend the page. So the area is base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2 times the height. Don't divide the height by 2. Only add your bases and divide by 2. For example, base 1 is 5 plus base 2 is 9. Then divide by 2. Then multiply by your height, 6. So I've got base 1 plus base 2, which is 5 plus 9, which is 14, divided by 2, which is 7, times 6 is 42. So the area is 42. Okay, in this one, base 1 is 16. Your parallel sides are always your bases. So 16 plus 14 divided by 2 times the height, which is 4. So 16 plus 14 is 30. 30 divided by 2 is 15. And then multiply by your height. 15 times 4 is 60. So the area is 60. Ooh, what happened? All right, now over here, this base, this total base is 14. So my area is base 1 is 6 plus base 2 is 14 divided by 2 times the height, which they did not give me. But since I have a right triangle, and I know this is 3 and this is 5, since I know the hypotenuse, I'm going to subtract. So 5 squared minus 3 squared is 4. So I find out that my height is 4. And some of you may remember that Pythagorean triple. So 6 plus 14 is 20. 20 divided by 2 is 10. And then we got to multiply by the height, which is 4. So the area of the trapezoid is 40. Okay, the last one is a rhombus. Remember, rhombus, all 4 sides are the same, and the diagonals are perpendicular. Important to know. All you have to do to find the area of a rhombus is real easy. You multiply your 2 diagonals together, and then divide by 2. Same old, same old. So if this piece is 6, then this piece is 6. If this piece is 14, then this piece is also 14. So diagonal 1 would be this whole piece, which is 12. Diagonal 2 is this whole piece, which is 28. So formula, diagonal 1 times diagonal 2 divided by 2. And you get 168. Okay, and this one, this diagonal is 18. So diagonal 1 is 18. However, I do not know this diagonal, but I have a right triangle, and this is 15. So again, I'm going to have to do Pythagorean theorem. I know the slanted side because it's the hypotenuse. So 15 squared minus 9 squared. Take the square root, and you get 12. So that means this is 12. Well, so is this one. So this diagonal, diagonal 2, would be 24. So you do in the formula, diagonal 1 is 18 times diagonal 2 is 24 divided by 2. And you get that the area is 216. Now, this case, they didn't even bother to draw the other diagonal, so I'm going to have to add that in. So I'm going to do it with a dotted line just so we know that that's what we drew in there. But they did at least give me diagonal 1. So I know diagonal 1 is 24 because they told me that, which means this piece is 12 and this piece is 12. And don't forget your diagonals are perpendicular. Well, if this is 12 and my hypotenuse is 13, then 13 squared minus 12 squared, take the square root, is 5. And if you may remember, that is another one of those popular Pythagorean triples. So this whole diagonal is now 10. So using my formula, diagonal 1 times diagonal 2 divided by 2 is 120. Okay, so that is all of our figures. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to work backwards on some of them, because what if I give you the area and I want you to find a part of the triangle or a part of the trapezoid or a part of your rhombus? Okay, so I know the formula for the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. I know the height and I know the area. So I know 2 of the pieces, so I can find my base. My area is 35, so I'm going to put it where A is. My base is x times my height, which is 5, and then I divide by 2. Well, the opposite of dividing by 2 is to multiply by 2. So if I multiply by 2, it cancels out, but I have to do it over here too. So I get 70 is equal to x times 5. So if I divide by 5, and then I divide this side by 5, I get that x is 14. Oops. So that means my base is 14. Okay, same thing over here. Write down your formula. So since it's a trapezoid, the formula is base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2 times the height. Base 1 is the x. Base 2 is 13 divided by 2 times the height. The height is 8. And the area is 80. Okay, so since I'm multiplying by 8, what would happen if I divided by 8? 8 would just cancel out. So now I've got 80 divided by 8, which is 10, equals x plus 13 over 2. Now it looks like this one over here, and I can multiply by 2 to make it cancel out. So now I've got 20 equals x plus 13. Subtract 13, and I get that the first base up here is actually 7 units. Okay, now over here we have a rhombus because all 4 sides are the same. So you use the formula diagonal 1 times diagonal 2 divided by 2. Okay, so if this piece is 7, then this piece is 7, so that means diagonal 1 is 14. So I know the area is 182 because they gave it to me. So 182, diagonal 1 is 14, diagonal 2 is x, and then divide by 2. Well, if I multiply both sides by 2, and I'm going to have to do it over here to make it cancel, I get 182 times 2, which is 364, equals 14 times x. Then if I divide by 14, cancels out, and I get that x is 26. So I find out that the other diagonal is 26. Okay, so that's all of your figures. So sum it up: square, side squared, rectangle, length times width, parallelogram, base times height. Triangle, base times height divided by 2. Trapezoid, base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2 times your height. And the rhombus, diagonal 1 times diagonal 2 divided by 2. See you next time. The end.